Here's this beautiful pointer. Koa. Her name is Koa. She's a girl, 6 months puppy. Hey, hey, baby. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, smile for the camera. Candid camera. Hey, smile for the camera, baby. Hey. Yeah. She has a beautiful spirit. She's a very loving dog. She's telepathic, believe it or not. She's highly intelligent. So what was I going to cover today or now? There isn't any time today. Learning curves. I've mentioned this in the past because about my childhood, I was on fire to learn, right? So when you realize you're on a spiritual battlefield and you're on fire to learn, you realize why every one of your experiences is you're meant to experience it, which means you implicitly trust your journey. When you are what love is, and that's your core energy vibration, then you know wherever you're supposed to be is exactly where you're supposed to be at that moment. You don't question it, even when it's bad stuff, because you know that you're bringing your energy in to where that is. So if you're experiencing lower energy, lower frequency energy, as a result of the environment that you're in, which is what we call exposure, and this is when you get into dose-response relationships, which is toxicology and epidemiology, and your ability to rehabilitate yourself or recover yourself, which is to recover your codes from the damage that they're doing to you as a result, basically, of gene swarming, which are code transfers. Okay, so in order to maintain your software, okay, you don't want somebody else running your computer for you, right? Changing it out, changing your codes, hacking into your system. That means you have to have key codes and access codes in order to know, if you will, or have access to the proper codes. So this would be no different than codes that somebody codes in the computer box for a brand new Lexus, Mercedes-Benz, a jet, okay, a commercial jet, right? I mean, they rely on those avionics. All the information and everything that they use to operate that airplane is all based on data. Okay, just like, remember the movie Terminator? Scanning the field. And if you watch that little episode, that miniseries with War of the Worlds, that was fascinating. I thought it was sort of ironic that they mentioned, for example, when they found Bob. Bob was artificial intelligence, a machine, and the lady who was a French, I believe, scientist was looking at the screens where all the data was being processed by Bob. Patty Broussard happened to mention Bob was working on our side as an artificial intelligence, providing what? Data. Now you get into quantum mapping systems, predictive programming, right? And then you get into programmable matter, and then you begin to realize how they know how to program what you experience by erasing your memories and reprogramming it. That becomes your reality stream. So then how to change out the codes. Okay. So what I was going to cover here, it has to do with learning curves. And I've covered that before about the difference in speed, right, of your learning, which is called your learning speed potential, which is a curve space, spirals. How fast are you learning? In your mirror, how to maintain what it is you're aware of, which is your soul, led by spirit, protecting you in your mirror. So you realize that your spirit is your protection because that's your shield. So your spirit is the teacher, particularly when you're running at a love vibration. So essentially what that means is that you're learning at a higher rate of speed than a machine is. So when you realize that as I did as a child, they're in a race against time. We don't experience time. We're eternity. So that means we can cut them off at the pass. We get there before they get there. And that's because they don't learn at the same rate of speed as we do. That means the level of technology transfer isn't as fast as we are. Okay, now you get into how it was. Patty talked about this, how it was they broke through into 3D as a result of what? Technology transfer. Now, if they got the technology, now they can gain access into another dimension or another density. So this is where I realized as a child, this is all about technology. Okay, technology and technology transfer. So if you came up with a particular brand new version of technology that is light years, if you will, as a metaphor, then what is the previous version that's being used in a particular galaxy or a supercluster or a universe? Think about how much value that has. It has technology. So you realize that they worship technology because now they can shortcut what is spiritual and soul growth. So if their pathway is with AI and machine coded technology, they're never going to be faster, okay, than a soul or an oversoul, in this case, led by spirit, that is the one, a monopole. They don't go that fast, okay? That means they're not learning as fast how to become one, which means now they can become one with the one, and that means they're everywhere, which means you don't need to use technology. See the difference? And that's where Yellow Rose was right. That's correct. We don't need to use technology. They do. So they took a pathway of technology as a means to which they have a shortcut, which means they're running behind the speed at which we are because they don't run as fast as we do. So I realized as a child they're in a track meet trying to catch up to us. That gets into your timeline breaches. Now you get into Future Proof's Past, Back to the Future. And they illustrated that in the most recent version of War of the Worlds. Uncreate what we created as a result. We keep experiencing timeline breaches, and now you begin to realize the difference between one and the other. Because they're not experiencing being one with the one, which is what love is. So you begin to sort of scale this up in acceleration of your learning with coupled to the exponential function, okay, in the use of your energy. So you realize the torque differential, speed displacement difference between who they are and who we are. And so that becomes a measurement in the loss and gain, which is simply an experience when you're experiencing entropy or something less than you know that you are, which is what love is. So that means from a healing perspective, a peacekeeper's perspective, you're not going to be any good in the healing business, right? If you can't rehabilitate yourself in order to maintain the higher vibration, to be able to care, show compassion and empathy for others, to maintain the higher vibration in a spiritual battlefield in which this planet was overrun, if you will, by space invaders. And so you know what it was that they did. Increase the density. Increase the density, lower the speed, at which people are experiencing less light, less love, lower frequency, lower vibration. Now you begin to realize it's like being in a shark tank, right? So I realized when I was working for a few corporations, while I was in those corporations, right, that the further you go up the pyramid in their inverted triangle consciousness hierarchy system, the greater the shark or the greater the vampire or the greater the control. And I experienced that in a lot of different ways when I worked at different jobs, that if you're coming in there and they find out that you're highly creative, you're highly intelligent, you're running with a lot of fire, hey, that employee would be a threat to me. He'll take my job, right? I need job security, so I need to find a way to make sure that I maintain my job and he doesn't take my job. Now we're back to money and power, right? And this goes right back to why so many people are held captive to the job, because they require the paycheck. So they're essentially working in jobs that are supporting a system that does not serve them because of what they're held captive to by those above them, in which they become expendable, which means they could care less about you. You're just a slave battery running a terminal or whatever it is you do, whether you run a backhoe or drive a cement mixer. That's the truth of it. So that means the entire system design that was set up that everybody's experiencing here is run by organized crime. All of it. Okay? So that's why everybody's like a barking sand or barking crystals, right? Barking crystals, barking sands, barking dogs. barking. Hey, wake up, look what's happening. We can't allow this to happen to us anymore. So they realized that more and more beings were going to start experiencing the spirit is waking up the soul. The spirit is waking up the soul. Come on. We're breaking the spell. Well, a bunch of Neos must have come in here. Now that's a system failure. The idiot light goes on. Whoa. We're in a race against time. Oh my God. They lost. They lost their race against time because we don't experience time. Okay? So you already know from the inside out, the system is going to start breaking down. It's not going to be able to rebuild its architecture because there's just too much light in here. Right? And that means that it was like, I remember one time Og Telly said, people are going to start pointing at everybody else. Right? Hey, there's another bot over there. In other words, you'll be able to know the difference between ones with souls, ones without souls, and which ones are working for who and which ones aren't. And the sadness and all that, and the pain that I experience and all that, is because of what happened to them. That was the result, actually, of what launched the war in heaven. Because the fact of the matter is, the learning curve, when you consider biotechnology and genetic engineering, the battlefield is codes, genetic codes. Okay? So that's why when you step it up a little bit, we're talking about higher creative intelligence, right? In which you're developing system design, information management systems, visual information systems based on codes, on versions. Hey, I can build a better computer. I can build one faster than you can. Remember Moore's Law? Which basically meant space. How small can we get to run a processor? Remember? Now you're into the nanotech side of things, right? Because it's all about control. Wow, look at what I can watch this being. It's acting exactly the way that I have programmed the instructions for this being to follow. And look at that robot. And they wring their hands at that stuff. There's a big difference between programming a machine that is working on behalf of what love is and one that's being programmed in order to go to war against what love is. Right? So you see the difference between the two, right? So love is the law. That's the highest law. So the highest law is going to have the last say. Right? Yeah. Because the law of one, when the one puts the word out, every atom, try and quantify how much energy that is that can be brought to bear on the problem. Right? So you can think of it as being outnumbered by atoms that are here on behalf of Adam, right? In order to preserve everything that Adam is doing, in order to do what? Create a universe that's created out of what love is, which are the worlds that we live in, which are living in a state of peace, love, harmony, and balance with others. Because we don't seek to do no harm. Right? It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. I had a couple choppers fly over the place a few hours ago. I figured that must have been because of the codes that I was putting through the system when I was on the terminal with somebody in Hilo, hooked up with their government system. You'd be surprised what they do on this island, what they have done on this island. They were using the Big Island of Hawaii as a storage dump for depleted uranium. Just another level of crimes that they do, right? That's why the cancer rate up on this island was as high as it is. Look at the other, Anyway, have a good day. I love you all.